Hello, good evening. This is Ruth Hepzibah, and you're welcome to Grief to Grace, the podcast that transforms grief into a journey of healing and empowerment. I am Ruth Hepzibah, like I told you, and I'm your host on this podcast. And today's episode is powered by Echoes of Life, and it is a coaching platform and also a platform where we empower people to get on grief and how they can be healed and get out of it and navigate it in a very healthy way. So, in this episode today, we have a very special guest in our midst, and he is Richard Kaufman. He's a veteran who has faced immense adversities, including grief, addictions, and depressions. So, despite all these challenges, Richard has built a successful podcast with over 2 million views and created a thriving business. So, his journey is a testament to the power of resilience and transformation. Before we dive into Richard's story, I want to introduce to you my book. Yes, this is my book, Rewrite Grief. So it is a pen that rewrites grief. A pen that rewrites grief. So it is from grief to grace. This book, along with the accompanying workbooks, which are available on echoesoflife.org, which you can also get free copies of the workbooks, not this one, the workbooks for the self care, if you subscribe to our channel. So it's designed to help you reflect and heal. So remember, Echoes of Life is here to support you through our coaching classes and our monthly support groups and meetings, which are held every second Sunday of the month. So you're welcome to Grief to Grace podcast. How are you doing today? I hope you are fine. Most times we ask those questions, how are you doing? It looks like it is so common and people take it for granted, but I tell you, it is not as easy to say I am fine as people see. Today I had got a news of someone very wealthy, a very big owner of a conglomerate in Africa who has excelled in all ramifications with Microsoft and everywhere. And I was told he committed suicide. He jumped out of his balcony, called everybody, and wished them goodbye. So, grief sometimes are just those things that are in us. And when you look deeply inside of his story, he had some underlying grief from divorce and so many other stuff that people didn't really recognize because they felt he was of the high and mighty and he was in the elite group and nobody really understood what he was going through. So grief can visit just anybody and it can be you. That's why every time when you go out, ask people, how are you doing today? Are you really fine? I tell you, you'll be so surprised the response you're going to get from them because they will tell you I am not as fine as you think I am. So, good evening once again. So, Richard, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, and I'm so blessed to be to come on your brand new amazing podcast. So I'm excited to be here. It's been a long time, and I'm finally grateful to be able to be on your show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super excited too to be here and hosting you on my show today. I'm so happy because I think it's just the Lord's doing. At the appropriate time, things just align. So most times it's not by our own making, it's not how we want it, it's how God wants it. And that's why I'm always very happy, especially you remember how we got the name Grief to Grace and everything. So when God is set to do a thing, God is really ready to get it to the end because He's in it. So, Richard, today I want to thank you for joining us. And can you start by sharing a bit of your background, what your life was like before you faced the significant challenges that you faced?
Well, first of all, I can remember 8 weeks ago where this was just an idea. There was no thing. There was no grief to grief. There was nothing. It was just an idea that you had, and
Yeah,
I'm so proud of you that you're making this thing happen. So I'm so blessed. Um, I
yeah,
started out challenged from the beginning.
yeah.
My mother left. I mean, my dad left when I was 3 months old. My
Oh my
mother was an
God.
addict. So, and I don't remember anything from 10 years old and below. And so my whole life has been adversity. But now, as I've become a man of faith and a Christian, I realize that God, if God got you to it, God's going to get you through it.
That's it.
And that, not, and it was after a talk with a gentleman named Ed Milet that I learned that nothing has ever happened to me. It's all happened for me. And that God never wastes a hurt. And that he'll give you back tenfold whatever was taken from you. So
Yeah.
I've been, and I had my first drink at 11. I was an alcoholic by 13.
Oh my
Um,
God.
got thrown out of joined the military, got thrown out of the military for being a drug addict.
Oh my
Got
God.
back in, and then almost got thrown out again. But 9/11, September 11th saved my life,
Oh my
and
God.
it was that day that I gave my life to the Lord, and I said, Lord, do what your will, whatever your will is, I'm willing to follow. And then a couple years later, I got hurt in the military, and I lost my eyesight, and
Hmm.
that's why I'm still 60% blind. Uh, and that's when I started the podcast. Is when after I got blinded, I had to do
Wow.
something, and now podcasts still going strong. I just did 6 episodes yesterday, and now I'm just trying to give people hope to let people
Yeah.
know that, no matter where you're at, if God calls you, it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
if you're in the gutter, if you're in the street, if you're called, it doesn't matter what your title is. God's gonna get you to where He wants you to be.
Yeah, that's true. Wow, that's a very intriguing story. Because when you mentioned battling with grief, with addictions, with depressions, and all this, and how your mom, because I noticed from your story, one, because your mom was an addict, so it was also very easy for you to get into it without really getting the right background on the right things to do, right? So
Yeah.
now, can you share with us what triggered most of those struggles in your life, and what was the turning point that made you take the decision to seek help, and also to start a journey to recovery?
Well, now actually there's four things in my life that happened. But the three major things that happened in my life is one, I almost went to jail for 5 years for
Wow.
robbing a police officer,
Hmm.
and he gave me a choice. I can either give him his money back and go to AA for 90 days, or I can go to prison for 5 years with no release, no bail, no bond for 5 years.
Wow.
And at that moment, I chose to go to AA, and that was
Mhm.
19 January 1st, 1989, and I haven't had a drink or a drug since 1989. That was
Wow.
the first one. The second one is 9/11. 9/11 changed my life because I was going to be thrown out of the military for a second time.
Wow.
But as where I'm sitting right now, if I go stand on my front porch, I'm 10 minutes away from Manhattan.
Hmm.
I'm actually sitting in the shadows of the Twin Towers.
Hmm.
And we knew people that were in the buildings that day. And it was at that moment when I decided and I cried out, and I wrote that in my book I sent to you. Um, and I cried out to the Lord. I said, Lord, let me help people that can help themselves. And I was given another chance and I was 27 years old. For 27 years,
Hmm.
I lived for myself. From that moment on, from September 11th, I've lived for other people now. I live to help other people. And then
Wow.
the most recent was it was Labor Day 2012 is when I attempted to take my own life
Hmm.
because after 27 years in the military and them telling you you're no longer in the military,
Hmm.
and, it's a grief, but it's a different kind of grief. There's all
Yeah,
different kinds of grief. There's not just one kind of grief,
you
and
are right.
and when you're no longer what you've done for the last 30 years, it's a big time grief.
Hmm.
But that so I attempted to take my life. Thank God that failed. Started a podcast and got popular and all that stuff. And then it's about 6 weeks or a month or 6 weeks ago, I almost took my life for a second time
Wow.
because one of my friends took his life.
Wow.
And he was a police officer, law enforcement officer. So that grieved me really hard. But the only thing that saved me, and I talk about this now, in my wallet about 2 months ago, I wrote my own obituary.
Hmm.
I wrote, you know, Richard Kaufman died surrounded by his loving wife and his family and his kids. He loved his wife. He loved his kids. He changed the world. But because I wrote that, if I would have took myself out, that means I couldn't have been a loving husband.
Yeah.
I couldn't have been a loving father because I just passed the pain of that grief onto them.
Mhm.
So now it used to be three big things that turned me around, but I think the last one really changed my whole life. And every time I open up my wallet, there's my obituary looking back at me.
Wow. Hmm. This is very, but I'm just like, I really don't know what to say right now because the truth is, people don't know how much grief can impact in people's lives. Grief can make you do what you never imagined, especially when you have loved ones that are just going. Because I can imagine you losing your friend to suicide, and maybe you are very close, and the bond is there already. And sometimes you just feel like there's really nothing to live for. I was talking with my son the other day, and he was like, when his father died, that he at some point in his life felt there was nothing really to live for. And if not for the grace of God that abounded at that time, so what would have become of him? Like so many other kids, maybe he would have gotten into addictions, he would have gotten into some other stuff, but thank God for the grace that was just all around us that kept us going. So sometimes the grace of God is what we need. And that is why you're able to open up your wallet and see that obituary that you've already written. And I think that's one of the best things that people need to do. Writing out, having a living will, having a living obituary, because people feel death is something that shouldn't come, but death is something that we need to plan for. So if we know that we have a lot of loved ones that depend on us, then we know that we need to take care of ourselves because we need to live for ourselves. I'm really so grateful that you shared that particular part of your story. So, how
And
did you
grief
navigate through? Okay.
and grief comes in many different forms. Like last, I think it was Friday, we had to put our dog to sleep,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and
I
she
saw
was
that.
and she was 16 years old, and she was my wife's best friend, and my wife is grieving, and I told her, I'm like, grieving doesn't have a timetable. There's
Yes.
there's no laws of grief, so it's okay to grieve. And a lot of people really, oh, it's just a dog. No,
It's
it's
not
a
just a dog.
so a lot of people say, well, say if somebody's husband or wife died 20 years ago, people say, well, get over it. No, you don't have to get over it. It's your
No.
grief. Own it. As long as you own that grief, but you also own the grace. If you're going to
Yes,
own the grief, make sure you own the grace too.
that's true. That's true. I'm so sorry to hear about the death because I think I saw it on Facebook where you said you laid the dog to rest. Oh, and that's another part of grief that people don't understand. The grief from pet, the loss of a pet. It can be so bad. A lot of persons can never overcome it. They don't get away from it because people overlook it. Your loved ones overlook it. I remember we had a dog, yes, my kids, when they were much younger, they still talk about it. They still grieve it till today. Every time they want to talk about something, they'll tell you one of the first things we lost was our dog Bella. They've not been able to overcome the grief that came out from it based on the love they actually shared with it. And if I know what I know now, we would have handled it more then. Because sometimes you just see people acting up and you don't know why they're acting up. It's because of those little things that we overlook. And I think that's one thing people need to understand. Is our grief, we own the grief, we own the grace, but we also have the ability to be able to determine how long we want our grief to stay. We want to be stuck in the grief. Grief never dies, it remains with you, but you can move with the grief, you can move along with it once in a while because it was something that was so precious to you. You will still remember, you will still cry, you will still think about it, but you'll be able to move past it and move to the other side. So let's talk about building a successful podcast and business. So your podcast achieved incredible success with over 2 million views. How did you come up with the idea of your podcast? And
Well,
what was the vision for it? What challenges did you face while you were building the podcast and the business? And how did you overcome all of them?
well, it's all because of a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. I never knew what a podcast was until I started listening to podcasts, and I love Gary V. And I got to meet Gary and talk to him, and he started me off on my path on the podcast. But for me, when I first started, it was just I worked with GNC, General Nutrition Center, and I would just try new products and I'd review them and put them up on social media. But when I lost my vision and I actually sat in a chair for 18 months, blind, for 18 months sitting in a chair, my friend said, why don't you start a podcast? So I started a podcast on Anchor. Back then it was Anchor. Now it's Spotify. And I started an audio podcast. And I just started interviewing people because I had nothing to do. I'm sitting in a chair. At least I can talk. And then it just grew from there to I think we're at like 1,250 episodes. Uh, going to hit 3 million downloads by the end of the year. 2 number one selling books. So for me, it was just I can't see, I can't drive. but I still want to help people. So how can I help people? And it was through starting a podcast that, but as you, and you have my book and
Yes, I was going to talk about it.
and I tell you in there about how I'm the worst podcaster ever. I had 300 episodes on Anchor until I found out we were never even on iTunes. And when I told them I want to put 300 episodes on iTunes, and they told me no way. So I had to start all over again, starting with 0 listeners, 0 guests. I started all over again about 5 years ago. I started all over again, and that's why when we told me and you were talking, I'm like, got to make sure you're on iTunes. You got to make sure you're on iTunes because Spotify is not going to put your episodes out there. And thank God you
Mhm.
took my advice, and now you're on Spotify, you're on iTunes. But that's how the podcast started, and I'm still going strong. I did 6 interviews yesterday. I'm releasing an episode every single day, so
Yes, I saw it.
I'm still going strong and enjoying coaching people and having fun and doing whatever the Lord tells me to do.
Yes, talking about being a coach, you are just an awesome coach. And I read your book and it was so good. It's one like a guide. Every day I read it, I follow it, I read it, I follow it. And it's something that everybody should have because every podcaster should have that book to because it's going to help you to and guide you looking from the angle or from someone who has made it in the podcast business. So if you are a new podcaster or you've been there, it is something you see Richard Kaufman, he is one person you need to know. I tell you, because he kept on pushing and he keeps pushing till you get it. So that's it. I'm really so
And,
grateful
and you know
knowing.
that I'll message you on Facebook. I'm like, did you do this? Did you
Yeah,
do this? Because I want you to be successful. Because if I'm going to call myself a successful coach, you have to be successful.
that's true.
So I'm more involved in your success. I'm more excited about your success than mine.
That's true. That's true.
And I think that's the difference between a good coach and a regular coach.
Yeah, that's true. Because you really did a good job with me when it comes
And
to that.
we're not even halfway done. We're going to get your podcast monetized. You're going to be making money. You're going to be on 35 different platforms. So this is just the beginning. I'm so pumped up.
That's good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. So, looking at most of these things you've achieved, what were the mechanisms or strategies that you find most helpful that helped you to
Well,
attain
for,
the height you've attained today?
well, first of all, I've held a lot of titles in my life, whether it's been a 3-time top selling author, top 2% podcast host. But the most important titles are, first of all, I'm a son of God. Second of all, I'm a husband. Third of all, I'm a father. Those are the 3 most important things in my life. And for me, my life is God, family, friends, and then business. Other than that, I don't have time for anything else. So I say no to a lot of things. And I think that's why I'm starting to become more successful because if it's not God, family, friends, or business, I'm not doing it. And I think once we know where we're heading, we have to stay on the narrow path and focus on the goal. Like when if Moses said, "Hey guys, we're just going to walk around the desert for 40 years, and that's it," but no, they had a goal. They knew that after 40 years they were going to leave. And I think we have to have our goal set, and sometimes we have to say no to certain things, and I think because sometimes we say yes to everything, but we really don't want to, but we say yes, and then it takes us further away from our goals.
You are correct. Because that's one of the challenges most people have, including myself. There were, especially when I was grieving, I couldn't say no to people. And everything was yes. And one day I took a decision. I keep saying it. I took a decision and I said that I need to learn to say no. And I tell you, that was a turning point in my life. Being able to say no doesn't mean I don't want to do it, doesn't mean I don't like you. It means that I should be able to prioritize me before anything. So I prioritize me, I prioritize my family, I prioritize my God before I prioritize any other thing so
And
that I don't get burnt out.
but also, I have a cup here that I keep. I can't pour into your cup if mine is empty. So I got to make sure that my cup is full, whether that's emotionally, financially, spiritually. I can't give you something I don't have.
That's
And a
it.
lot of people, if especially if you're a caregiver, a lot of people we just give and give and give until we have nothing left. And then we have the sick person, and then we're sick right along with them because we don't have anything left. So, caregivers, you got to take care of yourself, guys.
That's it. So based on this, what can you share how you found support during your grief, and what, because I know your own kind of grief is like a different kind of grief, right? So who were the special people, the specific people in your life and resources that you found very helpful? Who were those people in your life that helped you to actually navigate through whatever grief that you went through?
Well, first of all, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I have a weird relationship with God because sometimes I don't know what to call him. Sometimes I'll be at night, I'll be laying in bed, and I'm like, do I call you God? Do I call you Lord? Do I call you Jesus? And then sometimes I'm just like, bro, I'm struggling, bro. If Jesus is supposed to be my brother, sometimes I'm like, bro, I'm struggling and I need your help, bro. And I talk to him like I would a brother. So he's number one. And then there's my wife. We've known each other 40 years. She's my bride. She's my everything. I can tell her, there's some nights when I'm I'm breaking down because I still struggle with PTSD, traumatic brain injury, blindness, depression, anxiety. There's sometimes I'll lay in bed and I'll be like, honey, just hug me. And I'll cry in her arms. And I'm like, I just need to be held. I just need you to hold me. And so those two are the number one and number two. But also, I moved here in New Jersey 15 years ago with no friends. I had one cousin, and now I have thousands to hundreds of thousands of friends because I'm willing to be honest and very vulnerable. Where I'll put out on my page, and you've seen it. I'll be like, guys, I'm having a bad day and I need your help. I like that. So if you guys have a chance, give me a call. And I have all my friends are like, hey, bro, you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? But then also when my friends are having a bad day, I'm like, hey, are you okay? You doing
Yeah,
all right? So for me, in order to have a friend, you have to be a friend.
that's true.
And I didn't realize that till about 15 years ago. So I don't have followers, I I have friends.
Yeah,
And I believe that the more friends you have in this world, the better life is. I don't
that,
have followers, and somebody asked me today. I just released an episode today with my friend Debbie, and we talked about leadership. And somebody asked me, "Are you a leader?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I don't consider myself a leader." But you can ask my friends if
well,
I'm a
you are.
leader. I don't consider myself one because I think if you have to call yourself a leader, then
Then
you're
you're
not a.
not. Yeah,
It's
that's
what
true.
people say about you that's more important than what you say about yourself, right?
That's true. Okay, that's a good one. So, moving from what you've talked about right now, so what do you think about grief to grace? What does it mean to you? How do you embody that into your daily life?
Well, for me, I'm a big grace guy. Um, I'm a big gratitude guy. Like this is a life hack that I've done, and it's totally changed my life. My friend Patrick Mudge taught me it. Before I go to bed, every night before I go to bed, I put my arm around my wife. If she's sleeping or if she's awake, I kiss her and I pray to the Lord. I say, Lord, keep her healthy, keep her happy. Let her know that I love her and I appreciate her and I honor her. And I used to do that every night with my dog. I put my arm around her and pray for my dog. But then every night before I go to bed, I take three things that happened to me during the day that I'm grateful for. And this episode, this recording this with you is going to be my number one thing today. So that you can be the number one thing I'm grateful for. So, and then when I go, if I wake up in the morning, and thank God I've waked up every morning, if I could see something out of my eyes, because I was 60% blind at one time, and I'm still I was 80% blind. Now I'm about 60. If I could see something out of my eyes, I say, Lord, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know what you got coming for me today, whether it's bad or whether it's good, but I accept everything you're going to give me today. So before I
True.
go to bed, I go to bed with gratitude and I wake up with gratitude. Now, talking about grief, a lot of us have grief because there's underlying issues that we've never forgiven.
That's true.
There's people that have passed away that we've never made peace with,
That's
and
true.
we still have that grief. And something that I was taught, because I'm in recovery 35 years, somebody told me, and now you don't even have to do it with paper, but I was told that you can actually write a letter to that person that's passed, and
Yeah.
then burn it. Um, and then, or now some people write letters, send it to their own
Yeah.
email, and
Right.
delete it. Because if you're still dealing with unresolved issues, when somebody dies and you haven't straightened those issues out, it's going to be twice as hard. So
That's
I tell
true.
everybody, of course, I didn't make this up. I learned it all from AA and NA that first, for me to get healed from grief to grace, I had to forgive everybody that hurt me,
That's true.
not forget, but forgive everybody that hurt me. And then I had to go to everybody I hurt and ask for forgiveness. Because I
Mm.
don't care who you are, including me, we are somebody out there, the most hated person in somebody's life.
Mm.
I don't care if you're Brad Pitt, if you're Angelina Jolie, somebody hates them. And somebody did somebody wrong to somebody. So first
Mhm.
you have to forgive. You have to ask for forgiveness for people you've hurt, because we've all hurt people, and
That's
hurt
true.
people and hurt people hurt people. And then the last one is we have to forgive ourselves. And
Hmm.
that's the hardest part, is to forgive ourselves, because God already said, and I had this argument with my mother because she's sober 30 something years now, and she's holding on to something. I'm not going to put her story out there, but she's holding on to something for over 50 years now. And I asked her, I said, did you ask God to forgive you? She said, yeah. I'm like, you were forgiven. You don't even remember it. He forgave you and forgot it. You're still holding on to something that you've already been forgiven for.
That's true.
So why hold on to the grief?
That's
Why
it.
accept the grace?
Yeah. So that's it. Because forgiveness, like I always tell people, is the bane of healing. If you want to be healed, then you have to embrace forgiveness. Because if you don't forgive, you must learn to forgive yourself, learn to forgive the situation, and learn to forgive the people that have offended you. That way, your heart will be free. And Jesus said we should forgive 70 times, 7 times. So we should continue to forgive and continue to forgive, even when we don't even have a reason to. So I think that's a very good one there. So now, what advice do you have for people who are listening right now who might be facing their own battles with grief and addictions? What advice do you have to give to them? And also, what key lessons have you learned from your journey that you think can help other people who are going through similar struggles?
First of all, we can talk about the addiction part. And guys, I was addicted to drugs, alcohol, you name it, sex. I was addicted to everything. Um, because everybody is addicted to something. I don't care who you are, you're addicted to something. Do you know that the average person picks up their cell phone 400 times a day?
That's true. We are all guilty.
We're all addicted to something. So just because, and I tell everybody, just because your addiction is one thing and my addiction is something else, it's all the same. It's all the same thing. So I don't look down on anybody because we're all struggling with something.
Mm-hmm.
But the best way to, um, the best way to get out of a hole is to stop digging.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're having problems with alcohol, having another drink is not going to help that problem. So my advice is, if you're listening to this, if you're struggling, and I can't, if you don't want to talk to me, if you don't want to talk to Ruth, you can just dial 988 if you're struggling right now, and you can get help right now for mental health, addiction, stuff like that. So if you don't want to talk to either of us, you can just dial 988 from your phone, and you can get help today. So if you want to get healthy physically, mentally, spiritually, stop doing the bad stuff. It's simple.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
It's simple. I mean, it doesn't sound. It doesn't. It's simple to say, but it's hard to do. And being a Christian, I struggle with my language. I struggle with stuff too every day. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, man, did God just hear that? Did he know I just said that? But then sometimes I know God's looking at me going, but when
That's
you
it.
realize that Jesus, when he was on this earth, he worked in the trades. He was a carpenter. He lived a rough life for 33 years. So he's heard it
Yeah,
all. He's heard it all. You're not going to surprise God. He loves you right where you're at. And
you're
sometimes,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to say the best prayer you can. Sometimes the best prayer I can say is help. I don't have to go with these long prayers. Our Father, I just say, God, help. I'm sorry. That's all he wants. All he wants
That's,
is your friendship. All God wants is to be your friend.
that's all. You are correct. So, what are your hopes for the future and how has your journey of grief influenced them?
Well, you know, I go to bed every day knowing tomorrow is not promised. I may not wake up tomorrow morning. I'm always, before I go to bed, I'm like, Lord, I'd love to have another day, please. But if you're going to take me home, I'm good with that. But so for me, I live day by day because I plan for stuff in the future, but I live day by day because I want to enjoy the moment. Because a lot of people, they get so wrapped up in, I'm going to retire at 62. I'm when I get my pension and I want to enjoy now. And I
Mhm.
think that's what I learned from my dog Ginger is dogs have a great life and a great look. All they want to do is go out, explore, eat, drink, sleep, and love. And they enjoy every moment. They enjoy every meal.
True.
They enjoy every drink. They enjoy every kiss, every snuggle. And that's my goal, is to enjoy every moment that I have. And so for me, my goals, of course, is to be, one of the top podcasters in the world, one of the best speakers. But for me, if I get to be a dad and a husband for one more day, then I'm a success.
Wow. That's awesome. Thank you so much. As we wrap up, I want to introduce to you again the podcasting blueprint, mastering purpose, power, and profit. How we hit over 2 million downloads by Richard Kaufman. So, this is the book that you need. You can never go wrong with this as a podcaster, or if you have a YouTube channel, or you doing anything in the social media platform. You need this book, and it's on Amazon. You can pick it up, and I'm telling you, you'll be so glad you did. And there's
And
one thing I like about it. Anytime you get it, he's going to send you a gift too. He's going to send you a gift.
one thing I wanted to say is, if anybody picks up even the ebook, they'll get an hour of my time,
Wow.
whether it's on StreamYard, Zoom, phone. If they buy my
Wow.
ebook,
That's good. Thank
the ebook,
you.
the ebook I think is $2. If they pick up the ebook, they get an hour of my time to talk about whatever they want to talk about. So if they pick up the ebook and they let you know they got it, then we'll set up a Zoom call with them.
Okay, so please, you can get the book, the ebook on Amazon KDP. When you get it, please DM me, or you can DM Richard Kaufman. He is right there. He answers and responds to every mail when you send it to him on Facebook. Just let
And
him
now
know
I
you
also
got
want to say, if they buy the autographed copy, which is $30, and they can get that from me, I will have them come on the show, and then I'm going to give them something worth $1,000 just for spending $30 on that book.
wow, like this. Thank you. So I'm so excited that we have you, and thank you so much, because these offers are things I didn't even envisage that we're going to get here. So now you can see that you have a lot. You have your coaching and 1 hour coaching class with him, and he will be able to pull you through on how you can move forward in your career, irrespective of where you are. It doesn't matter where you're located. Just hit me up on my DM and say, I want to be part of it. I want a class with Richard Kaufman, and get a copy of the ebook on Amazon for $2, and you are there. And when you get this copy, which is $30 on Amazon, and he's going to give you the autograph, then you get all other benefits like he has mentioned, plus featuring on his show. It's not easy to be on his show. So you feature on his show, and he's going to help you get out to the world. Thank you so much. I am so grateful to you, Richard, for all that you do. I thank you for your community service all the time, always trying to help people get to the other, to where they actually desire to get to, and always helping, always chipping in those words that can help someone to rise, especially for those of us that are just rising like I am. You can never get there, or else you are dead. So I am so grateful. Thank you for sharing. And as we wrap up, I would love you to also understand that we have Echoes of Life, and Echoes of Life is our platform where we have our support groups. If you are grieving in any way and you think you need somebody to talk to, I'm the grief buddy. So you can always hook up with us. Echoes of Life is 501c nonprofit, and you will meet other people who are also grieving, and want and are ready to share their experiences with you. And also, we have what we call Grief Spa, where you'll be able to integrate all back to the society and begin to make it again in life. If you think you need a coaching class, you need someone to get you through this process of grief. I tell you, it is not easy, especially to do it on your own. Then you can hit me up and we can always work it out. So, not forgetting our book. I love this book because I use it every day. This is that book that took me out. One of these days, I'm going to share some of my pictures when I was grieving, some of my pictures before grief, and my peak photos after grief. And I'm going to share some of my failures while I was grieving and most of my successes after I took that one decision to stand up and be that which God has created me to be. So you need this book, A Pen That Rewrites Grief. It is available on our website. So if you go to our website, www.echoesoflife.org, you'll be able to get this copy. I love you so much, and I know that you guys have always been supportive. I appreciate all the messages I've been getting, all the support I've been getting from people. A lot of people sending me messages in our DMs and sending emails to admin@echoesoflife.org. I love you so much, and I'm following up, and I've been responding to all the emails. I love you because I know that this thing called grief, people underrate it. I went through it. I'm a survivor of grief, and I know that you will survive too. So if you know that you want to feature here, you have a story to share, hit me and we will put you up on this platform. This platform is for everyone that has a story, because I believe that when you healing, one of the best ways to heal is by sharing. So when you keep sharing your experiences, other people will learn from them and you also will learn from them. So join us next time on Grief to Grace, where we'll continue to explore stories of transformation and resilience. I love you so much. I love you all. Thank you for listening. And I want to thank you, Richard, for sharing your powerful story with us today. Your journey from combat to conqueror is truly inspiring. And for us listeners, remember that you are not alone. Echoes of Life is there to help you. Brief to Grace is there to help you through all of our coaching classes and also our book. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope that you'll join us again next time. I'm Ruth Hepzibah. Would you like to make any adjustments? Do you want to make any plans? Would you want to do anything in your own life? You want to make an adjustment in your life? Hit me. And also don't forget to buy the ebook, and get the coaching, 1 hour coaching, or get this copy and get the free um, feature on on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I love you. Bye.